let's talk about choosing shoulder rests and chin rests for students who are going through their growth spurt or at their full height. With young students, we're big believers in sponges because they're flexible, there are many kinds. You can be sure the instrument comes back on the collarbone and is close, and there's a lot of flexibility, so you can have find something where you have a good angle and balance. When students are growing, sometimes it's always going to be the case that there will come a time that you have to revisit their setup. So the things to consider here are the shoulder rest and the chin rest. So the one thing I find very helpful to do is take whatever's on the back of the instrument off and just set the instrument to a good angle and see where that is comfortable and find a chin rest that works for that student's jawline. I'm not saying that they're going to play with nothing behind them, but it helps them to find where the instrument should go. If they have a very long neck, you want to maybe have a little bit extra height on the chin rest. And if they have a shorter neck, then something flatter will probably work. When you're looking at what goes on the back of the instrument, there are great players who play very different ways and have opposite beliefs about this. Some people believe you should play with nothing or next to nothing on the back, and some people believe you should hold the instrument up and fill in all the space, all the way down here into your chest up to the instrument. So these are two big extremes, and there are great players who play both of those ways. So the question really is, what are we looking for? The most important thing I think we're looking for is flexibility at all times. So when you're playing, you need to be able to swing the left arm with a full rotation. You need to be able to move in and out with the shoulder. You need for the head to move up and down and left and right. So whatever the setup is, you want to be sure the left arm can move. You can move in and out here. The head can move, and you're not stuck in any place. So the folks that like to play with nothing or less than nothing really appreciate this flexibility here and being able to move their instrument when they play and to change angles when they play. The harder part of playing that way is for someone who's used to a big shoulder rest, will say, well, they're not as free to shift or vibrate. And it is true that playing on that side of life requires an understanding of head weight and cantilever, so that when you shift, you slightly drop your head weight to release, and then you release the neck here. So to play well that way, you have to accommodate by learning how to move those balances. For the folks that like to play with all the space filled in, the positive thing about that is a certain sense of security, feeling that it won't move and that they don't have to move, and maybe it's a little easier to keep the left shoulder down. And the downside sometimes can be that things are so packed in here that the back of the neck becomes rigid. Another challenge with a hard, big shoulder rest is that many of them have a certain curve on it, and that exact curve doesn't work with everybody. So sometimes what you'll see is a curve on a shoulder rest that makes the violin tip like this and you can't move it, or it makes it really flat and you can't move it. So you have to be very careful that what you have fits you. There are more newer options now that have a little more flexibility than some of the old ones did, and those are definitely worth looking at. But you really don't want to have things so packed in that you can't move your neck and that you can't move your left arm under. So it's a little bit of false sense of security. That's not to say that they can't work for someone in combination with a chin rest where the angle works and they still can move. And it's especially valuable with people with really long necks and or sloped shoulders. So it's really an individualized process in the end, and to help for you to find out what works for you and for each of your students.